I was listening to the story about, there was a story of a family in Washington, and the little boy called the Bigfoot the Cowboy Man. And he had, apparently it had made an effort to steal this kid. And it hit me. My children were in that playpen behind me with nothing but a mosquito net over them. It could have crept up behind me and taken both of my children, and I wouldn't have known.
Father just got like a Mustang or something from Wyoming, okay? He had it out in the corral because he couldn't put it in the barn in the stalls with the other horses because it would kick and made all the other horses nervous. Had a Seminole Indian working the horse trying to break it every day. So they had it out in the corral. This skunk ape snuck up behind this horse and grabbed it on its hindquarters. This particular horse kicks out, jumps over the corral, runs into the pasture, to get away. At this point, the rancher's out there just blasted away with the 30-30. Skunk ape runs into the swamp.
I went up there one day after that, or 2 days after that. I went up there and sat in the silence up there, and I'm telling you, man, it was free. It was crazy. There was a crazy vibe up there still. I did what I could to kind of get things under control, but I told her, I said, you need to get off this property. I feel like no matter how strong you are, it's almost like standing in the ocean. You can't stand still without moving your feet. You're going to get knocked over eventually, no matter how strong, whatever. You can't withstand a barrage of weird spiritual energy.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Paranormal Odyssey. I'm your host, Wayne, joined as always by my good friend, partner in crime, Miss Tiffany. What's up, ma'am?
Not too much. I am so excited for this episode because I am a fan of the Dogman. I mean, I even wrote a book about it.
You did. You wrote a book about Bigfoot too, though.
I did.
We talk a lot about Bigfoot, though. We don't talk that much about Dogman. And yeah. I personally, I'm excited about this show too. But I'm a fan of these guys that are backstage. I got to hang out with them a little bit in Ohio in the conference that we were all at just it's about a week or so ago. Yeah, got to hang out with D.A. Roberts and Robbie Raines. I talked to him a little bit, and man, hearing some of the stories that those guys were sharing, I told them while we were sitting out, we were all doing like a little round table, sitting outside talking on the last night of the conference, and I told them I wished I had a little recorder that I could have set out. I've got recorders, but I didn't bring one that I could have set out on the table to listen to some of the stuff they were telling.
I know, I'm excited to hear.
I was captivated, man. And then to get to see some of the pictures from what, they were telling, they have pictures to actually go along with it. We're going to share those with you guys tonight. But even better than having the audio recorder sitting out, I asked them both to come on, and they both agreed. So very, very happy to get those guys on. I've had D.A. Roberts on before. This is the first time for Robbie, and I'm really, really excited. Hopefully this won't be the last time that we get them on because those guys are always out in the field. They're always doing cool stuff.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear all the tales.
All right, who we got hanging out with us now? Oh, God, there's 65 comments.
I know, I'm like trying to keep up with it, and it's just it's growing.
That is awesome. Thank you guys so very much. Let's go into paying some bills real quick.
Let's do it.
Guys, if you are new to the show, and I just looked at the comments, there were a few new faces that I saw. Please do us a favor and hit that subscribe button before you head out. We would greatly, greatly appreciate that. Help Miss Tiffany and myself continue to grow this show. It's heading in the right direction, but we could use your help. So please, before you leave tonight, hit that subscribe button.
And if you would like to come on with Wayne and I, you can reach out to both of us, Wayne at paranormalworldproductions.com or me, Tiffany at paranormalworldproductions.com. We only have a few dates scheduled for November, so we are good to get you on the schedule.
Guys, I want to ask everyone to please head over to our website, paranormalworldproductions.com. Check out all the other shows under the studio's umbrella. And a little bit of a teaser. I'm happy to announce. It's not really an announcement, but something for y'all to be looking for. We have a new show coming up that we are going to be adding to the studio. So y'all be looking at that. But head over to paranormalworldproductions.com. Check out all of the other shows. Pick up some merch. Sign up for the newsletter that Mr. Brian King Sharp does. We would love to have you head over to paranormalworldproductions.com.
And as always, if you have any questions for tonight's guest, please just put them in all capital letters. We highlight them and save them for the end of the show, and we do a rapid fire Q&A. So I just ask that you put them in all capital letters. We have a very busy chat. It'll help me to highlight them quicker.
All right, guys. And as always, the membership is open. We would love to invite anyone that would like to become a member. We would love to have you. We do extra shows throughout the month, extra live broadcasts for the members only. We call them PO Freaks. If you would like to become a PO Freak, we would love to have you. It's $1.99 a month. Like I said, you get extra shows, extra live shows. You get early access to stuff. There's a members only Discord that you are welcome to join. Just all kind of cool stuff. And again, it's just $1.99 a month. $2. What can you do for $2? Look at that. Goonie Goo Goo. $1.99. Did he just hit us with a $1.99 sticker?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it came out and went right off the chat. So I'm scrolling back in the chat. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. So if you guys would like to become a member, we would love to have you. Also, if you're looking at the bottom, you see the Cash App and the Venmo. We have such amazing people that watch this show. Y'all take care of us every single month. You make sure that we get a paycheck from YouTube, and we appreciate that. But we have talked in the past about the percentages that YouTube takes out. It's a lot.
It's disgusting.
No. You said that. I did. It's a lot. So we certainly appreciate it. I mean, you guys have sent us $500 before, and we might bring home 300 of that, and YouTube gets the rest. So if y'all want to help us out, and we certainly appreciate it, y'all have been doing it this month. We want to, if you would like to, we want to encourage it. That is the Cash App and the Venmo down there. Whatever you want to send. Obviously, the fees aren't as much. Tiffany and I split those, so you send them, and then I send Tiffany her half like the next morning, usually. So we aren't at our goal. We're coming up on the end of the month. And if you guys want to help us reach that goal, we would certainly appreciate it. No pressure. We love y'all. We thank you for everything that you do.
Yes. And I'm going to try so hard to keep up with the chat because it is flying. So if I miss something, I'm sorry. Please type it again.
Chat is, man.
Yeah, it's hopping. And my apologies ahead of time to DA and Robbie, because I swear I'm listening. I have been looking forward to this Dogman show. Kevin Bode, look at that. He finally got it. Whoop, whoop.
Kevin Bode was at the conference in Ohio. Got to hang out and talk to him quite a bit. Thank you, buddy.
That's awesome.
Very, very cool of you. Thank you for signing up.
But I promise I'm listening, but I'm going to be looking to the chat just because.
All right. We are about 10 minutes in. So if you are ready, ma'am, we are going to get our guests out.
Yes. Absolutely.
All right. Again, guys, we have the show is going to be amazing, guys. The pictures that I'm about to show y'all, they are amazing. A couple of really, really cool guys are waiting backstage. We got Mr. D.A. Roberts and Robbie Rains. What's up, fellas?
Hey, guys.
How are y'all doing tonight? I want to thank you guys so very much for taking the time to come and hang out with us. I appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having us on.
Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. You guys do your own show, DAX Machina, right?
Machina, yes.
Machina, I'm sorry.
No problem.
Yeah. When is that on for the guys?
We're on every Wednesday and Saturday night at 8 p.m. Central. And we've also been doing a live audio reading of some of my short stories and books on Sunday nights at 8 as well.
Okay.
We call that Campfire Tales.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. I'm going to ask both of you guys just one at a time. We'll start with Robbie. What got you started in this crazy cryptid field, Bigfoot, Dogman? What was it that piqued your interest?
Well, you should ask that. It was I had a sighting when I was about 7 or 8 years old. It was back in the early 80s. And I won't bore you with the whole long story because it'd take a minute for me to spell it out. But basically, I was at my great grandparents' house, which is basically like 120 yards to my left over here, still there. But my grandparents or great grandparents don't own it, or none of my family anymore. But the house is still there, the property's still there, but it's not what it used to be. It used to be nothing but woods and swampy areas and things like that. Now it's trailers and houses and everything back behind there now. But anyway, during the summer, early summer, 82, 83, somewhere around in there, was down there. They were all sitting on the front porch talking, my mom, my grandparents, and my great grandparents. And as I got to turn the TV off, I look out to the right, and I was in like the den living room area, kitchen right beside me, a little mud room. And I look out the back screen door. Of course, there's light on in the room I'm in. There's no light at that end of the house. I see something looking in at me. So I don't right off think, early 80s, there's DA loves the terminology I use. There wasn't no Googles. The Googles didn't exist back then. So you couldn't Google any of that stuff. It's just the only, Bigfoot knowledge I had was, Colonel Steve Austin fighting Andre the Giant dressed up like a Bigfoot, and what you saw on that show with Leonard Nimoy, In Search of. I mean, that's it. So my mind, I once I realized I was looking at something that was alive and was looking back at me and was moving, my mind went to monster immediately.
Yeah.
So, just as I got more interested in, because I've to this day burned in my memory. I remember exactly what it looked like. So just going forward there, anything that I could get my hands on, read and look at, and kind of, just add to that toolbox of knowledge. I started building, and this was a Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever you want to call it, because obviously Bigfoot was a hot button phrase back then. So just built on that, what I saw, and just read and watched anything I could from that point on. And that's pretty much what lit my fire. But then, as you get older, people start making fun of you. You just kind of start repressing stuff like that, and you don't talk about it. And I didn't talk about it for, plus being a cop, you don't really want to kind of throw stuff like that out. But until a couple of years ago, when I read a book by a guy who his internet just kicked him off, apparently. I read one of DA's books. I read the Wild Hunt book the Odin's Call, the first Wild Hunt book.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one line in that book, because when I looked out that door, it was doing this. And he wrote a line in the book talking about it was tree peaking. And I read that line. And like I said, I hadn't talked about this for 40 years. I read that line and it brought everything back to me. It was just like a wave of bringing all those repressed memories back. And so DA's email was on the back of the book. I'm like, well, yeah, whatever. I'm going to send him an email. So I sent him an email. I didn't expect to get a return, but 1 turned into 2, 2 turned into 10, 10 turned into 30 or 40. And then I ended up telling my story on his show. I had said something about had been thinking about doing a podcast about this, because it's just something I've always enjoyed and loved to talk about and learn and all that. So he was giving me tips with that, and he brought me back on to talk about my show, and then that led to the other, and I ended up, and for almost 3 years now, I've been one of his co-hosts. So
yeah, that's very cool. Very cool. I just got a text from DA, said be right back. His computer froze. So Robbie,
did that on him last week too. So
Robbie, we got you for the time being, buddy.
Well, sorry, the best one's computer froze.
No, there is no best one, dude. So do you still do your own show, or do y'all just co-host one?
Well, it's still there. We still got all the stuff, but we pre-record our show, me and my buddy Johnny. And my daughter's boyfriend Tyler is our tech guy. He does all the sound and editing and all that stuff. But where we do it, there's been some kind of back and forth between the guy who lets us use it and him and the people who own the building. And so it's just been in kind of a hiatus as of right now. We've got probably 52 episodes out. I mean, so you can find us on YouTube or Spreaker or any of that kind of stuff. Thanks, Don. I appreciate that. They are kind of wide, I guess. But y'all gonna make me blush. I'm not good at that stuff. But anyway, yeah. So it's still there. We just hadn't done anything new in them. But honestly, we were going on Monday nights to record that, and then we do Ex Machina Wednesday and Saturday night, and then we started the campfire stories. So really, honestly, that's pre-recorded. I don't really put that in the front burner. I mean, it's back burner stuff. If we all get together and we can put one on there, then we do it. But
yeah,
I'm really filled up as the co-host of DA show and all the stuff we do. So, I mean, it's there. It's fun. If I get a chance to do it, I do it. But I have more fun on DA Ex Machina than I do, because you know this. If you're the one that has to figure out everything, it's like being an assistant coach in football. You get to have fun and coach if you're the assistant coach. If you're the head coach, you don't get to have as much fun. So
yeah, I mean, I know exactly what you're saying. I love doing this show, and I've loved it even more since Tiffany has come on. It's just funner when you have a friend that you could do it with. When Brian and I do that Bigfoot podcast, we have the most fun doing that show a couple days a week. I mean, it's just so fun.
Well, that's when me and DA and Steve and Doc are all on. And we say that all the time. It's not like it's a job or anything like that. It's like the four of us just sitting around having fun. Which is why we derail most of the time when we derail, because we're just four friends sitting around talking.
Yeah, that's the best time, man. Okay, welcome back, DA.
Sorry about that. My computer froze up and I had to completely reboot.
You are fine, buddy. Robbie took the reins.
No pun intended.
Did a great job.
That was funny.
I've never heard that one before.
I'm sure you haven't. DA, same question to you, buddy. What got you started in all this?
Well, I grew up on a farm north of a little town called Lebanon, Missouri, and Lebanon's not a massive town. It's about the same size as the town in Ohio where we were at, Greenfield. It's about that size. It's not a big town, but it's primarily an agricultural town.
Yeah,
a lot of farms. We lived out north, and This was back in the 70s before, there was really anything worth watching on TV. And I think we're on a good clear day. We got 2 channels. I didn't watch much TV, so I was always outside running around the farm doing chores and stuff like that. But I remember watching the Patterson-Gimlin footage. And I think, if I remember correctly, I think it played as part of a trailer with a movie at a drive-in theater, the old Mini 5 drive-in outside of Lebanon. And I was just absolutely blown away. Well, of course, then as a kid, I'm running around asking all my relatives if they'd seen Bigfoot and stuff, and they all thought I was nuts. But like I said, when I was on the show with you before, my Uncle Buddy, who technically wasn't my uncle, he was my aunt's ex-husband. He's full-blood Cherokee, but he was always Uncle Buddy to me. One day, when everybody was out and about, and I was the only one around, I asked him about it, and he put me on his knee, and he said, "I'm going to tell you something, and you need to pay attention. They're real, and they're on this farm, and you better be careful." And from then on, just getting that confirmation from an adult, I was sold. Had a couple of experiences on his property. Lost a deer and had something approach my deer stand in the dark. But again, that just added fuel to the fire. But I kept investigating pretty much my whole life. When I was in law enforcement, I kind of kept it on the down low because you don't really want somebody bringing up Bigfoot investigating when you're on a defense stand. So I kind of kept it quiet then, but I did collect a lot of stories from other cops over the years. But now that I'm retired, sky's the limit. I'm out as much as I can. I'm back to going into the wild places and talking to folks, and it's been kind of a lifelong passion of mine.
Okay. Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Again, I'm going to touch on, you guys told the story, and I'm going to let y'all, whichever one wants to jump in and start the story. You were telling me about what happened in Joe Bald and then another location. So I think the Joe Bald stuff happened first, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you also talked about some people going missing out of there. So if you could just start at the beginning and just tell us the story.
One of the things we noticed while we're doing some research of active areas around Missouri, because that's where I live, and I'm an Ozarks hillbilly, and I've done most of my research in the Ozarks. But I have gone to other places like LBL and down in Oklahoma and Texas and stuff. But that's neither here nor there. But while we were doing research on locations here in Missouri, we noticed something, that there were some of the more remote and less accessible campgrounds that the Army Corps of Engineers was just shutting down with no explanation. And we're talking Table Rock Lake in Missouri, which is a very popular tourist destination. And to buy land down there would probably cost you upwards of $200,000 for a half acre just to build a lake house. Yet there's several campgrounds on Table Rock Lake that not only they shut them down, they've refused all chances to reopen them. And camping's at a premium down there. People camp down there all the time. They've refused all chances of people to try to reopen them. And in one case, Combs Ferry, they went as far as to bulldoze up the roads into it. So that really kind of piqued our interest. But Joe Bald is one that stuck out because I had some buddies that were, well, let's just say they were in a branch of law enforcement in that county. I'm not going to call out a department or anybody because I don't want to. There's a couple of them are still there, so I don't want to get anybody in any kind of trouble. Right. But I started hearing some odd stories about the old Joe Bald campground. And being a writer, I thought, well, heck, I'm gonna set a book down there. That sounds creepy. And a couple of the stories I heard were pretty terrifying, including one was an officer who had driven down there just to check the park, and he didn't see anybody in there because you can still drive into Joe Bald, but you can't stay. You can't spend the night there. The camping area is shut down. It's all completely overgrown. Kind of nature's taken back over. But he pulled into one of the old camp spots to write reports, and something came up behind his car and slammed its hands down on the trunk deck of his car. And he hit the brake immediately, and all he could see was a hairy chest in the back window of his cruiser. I said, "What'd you do?" He said, "I punched it and got the hell out of there. There wasn't any way in hell I was putting that in the report." I said, "How'd you explain the damage to your patrol car?" He said, "I told him I hit a deer and it flipped up and landed on my trunk." He said, I'm not about to tell him what really hit
So
my
it,
car.
it did damage to
It did damage to his patrol car. It caved in. It caved in the trunk deck about 3 inches.
Holy shit.
But after hearing that story, it was dead set in my mind that I was going to set a book there because it was just so creepy. So one night, about 4 years ago, it was about this time of year, late fall. Me and heck, it might have been longer ago. I was still with the department just before I retired. So it was probably right at 5 years ago. Steve Monrotis, we drove down with our wives to Joe Bald. It was right after dark. We were going to go down there and shoot a little footage to promote my book, The Lakeview Man, because Lakeview Man was partially set there. Well, Steve and I filmed about what is come to be known as the Joe Bald footage. We filmed a little promo video for my book, and we didn't expect to see anything. We kind of hoped we would, but we didn't expect to see anything. And we filmed this little video and got back in my van and left. Went on down into Branson and had dinner. Didn't think anything more about it. Post the video on my website, which is still up there. It's available on my YouTube channel as well. But posted the video. Didn't think any more of it. About a year after that, about a year later, I was doing a show with a guy, a show out of California, a show called The Nightmare Hunter, which again was where it's part of that. I was one of the co-hosts on the show, we were doing this show, and we get to talking about it, and he said, "Hey, why don't you show that book?" Because Lakeview Man had just come out, and he said, "Why don't you show that video?" So we showed the video, and one of the guys in the audience said, "Hey, there's something moving in the woods behind you." And I'm like, nah. I've watched that video 100 times. There's nothing moving back there. And he goes, "No, I'm telling you, that's something's moving over on the other side of that little concrete bridge from you." So I sent the video, the raw unedited video. I sent it over to a couple buddies of mine who do video analysis and breakdown. And what they sent me back kind of blew my mind. It looks like a wolf type head sticking out from behind of a tree. And when I move my flashlight that way, you can see it duck back behind the tree. And as soon as I clear with the flashlight, it comes right back out. It was about 9.5 feet off the ground. We went back to the exact tree and measured it. And it looked like a large wolf head leaning out from behind that tree. The video is still available on my YouTube channel, DAX Machina. It's called the Joe Bald Breakdown video, and they actually have isolated stills of what we found. Well, that was just kind of the tip of the iceberg there, because that just really set us off. I mean, we're like, holy crap, we got something at Joe Bald now. So I went back down there a couple other times with other people, and we would always have weird things happen. We'd hear something pacing us, but nothing ever got close. Well, once Robbie became a co-host on the show, I was telling him about it, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to take some vacation time, and I'm going to come down there." And I said, "All right, awesome." So it was early November, a year ago, or before that? Was it 2 years ago?
Might have been 2 years ago.
I think it was 2 years ago. Robbie comes down. So me, Robbie, and my son Noah all go down to Joe Bald, and we went down there at night, and well, you know what? I've already been talking for a few minutes. I'll let Robbie kind of take over on this point, because Robbie was for the initial encounter, and this is the night that my son Noah earned the name the official Robbie Wrangler, because he's the one that's in charge of making sure Robbie doesn't wander off.
And real quick, DA, speaking of stuff going on behind you, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's some eye shine going on behind you.
I'm used to it. I kind of live with that, but that's just an animated background on my green screen, unfortunately.
All right, go ahead, Robbie.
Okay, so I drive down there. DA and Noah come pick me up. We go eat. I go back, check in. DA calls me a little bit later and says, "Hey, you want to go out tonight?" And I'm like, "Sure, that's why I came down here." So they come back and pick me up, and we take off and go down to Joe Ball Campground. Well, the whole way we're talking, and you know, I at that point probably read everything that he had out. So when you read something, you have that picture in your mind, the way you think something's supposed to look, and 99 times out of 100, you probably never get to go and see that place for real. So I was already kind of excited because I'm like, yeah, I get to see where this book took place, you know, because I love giving DA a hard time. I told him, I said, I bet your writing room looks like one of those old 70s detective rooms with the red strings going all over the place to different places in the wall. And he laughed. He probably took them down before I got there just so but how he keeps up with that stuff, I'll never understand. But anyway, we're talking the whole way going down there, and he said, all right, I want you to tell me when you feel like we're getting close. Just see it, because he did the same thing when Doc came down. I said, okay. So we just went on talking, and I guess we were within a quarter of a mile, DA, or something like that.
That.
I said, something just shifted. I said, something feels a little bit different. He kind of laughed. He said, he looked back at Noah. He said, this is about the same spot Doc said it wasn't. Noah said, yeah, thereabouts. And I don't know what it was. I can't explain it. It just, something just felt different. You know, we were still cutting up, having a good time, talking, laughing, but something just felt different, and not with us, but just in general. So we drive down. We stop at the little gas station, which that's a funny story in its own right. We stopped the first night we went there. We stopped at that gas station, got something to drink, and then drove on into Joe Bald. So I'll let DA tell the funny part about that when he picks up.
Okay.
So we go on into Joe Bald, and we step out of the car, and it's like stepping into a vacuum. There is zero sound. There's no insects, no birds, no nothing. I mean, it's dark. What time was it, DA? About 10:30?
Every 9-10 o'clock, somewhere around in there.
Well, and to back up a little bit, I had checked my phone 10-15 minutes before we got there. I had 80% battery on my phone. We get in there, we get out, we're looking around. I looked at my phone, and it's on 2%. I'm looking. He said, what? And I said, my phone's dead, or almost dead. And he said, what? He said, you just had almost a full battery. I said, yeah, I know. I charged the whole way down there. I had it plugged, or coming in, I had it plugged in because I was running GPS, and I know that, you know, will eat your battery up. So it had been unplugged from the time I got there till then, and it had worked its way from 100% down to 80%, because that's probably 2.5, 3 hours from the time I got there to the time we went down there and stepped out. So, but in a 15-minute span, it went from 80% to 2%.
Oh wow!
My FLIR camera that while we were at my house, I put brand new batteries in. I went to turn it on in Joe Bald, and it wouldn't power up. So I handed it back to Noah to check, and those brand new batteries had exploded in my FLIR camera and destroyed it.
So we're going through all that weirdness, and then we step out of the car into the vacuum. No sounds, no nothing. Saw a couple of vehicles, but the really interesting two vehicles we saw, one coming out and one still parked in there. Both of them big. Those big box trucks, big panel trucks, like construction companies and 24-hour service companies use. Matter of fact, that's what it had on the side of the truck. 24-hour service. Go ahead,
no
Wayne.
Phone number.
Ask me what kind of service.
No phone number. No
I don't
address.
know. You just said 24-hour service.
That's
Take your pick, I guess. In a park that was nothing but camps. There was no houses inside that park. So what in the world is two 24-hour service trucks doing in the park?
And when we would move, they would move.
So we start walking around. We start looking. And
yeah, we said, hell with it. If they're going to watch us, they can watch. And we got out and started doing our stuff.
And, you know, me being the tracker, I get my head down, my flashlight up, and I'm looking. We're walking around, and of course, we're either in the parking lot or we're on the shoreline, and it's nothing but those big rocks, those big lake rocks. Well, we walk around a little ways, and DA and I must have seen it about the same time, because I saw it, and as I was bringing my flashlight up to it, he said, "Hey, is that a track trap, Robbie?" I'm like, "Yep." One spot about 7-8 feet long and about 4 feet wide, give or take. Would you say, DA?
Yeah.
Because the lake was down there. It's just one little spot that was mud, and which was a weird area because as soon as we get over there, you put 1 foot down and you'd sink about 2.5 feet, and then you put your next foot down and it was like you're standing on concrete.
Yeah, it was odd.
It was like that. Like every few feet you would sink, and then it'd be like walking on concrete again. Same material, but anyway, when we say track trap, that's pretty much a term that traps a track. I mean, there's no big science behind it. It is what it is. It traps the track. So this was
It's
like
an area, like if you were walking through an area of heavy rocky ground, and there's a small sandy area where tracks could be highly visible. That's a track trap.
Yep. Very good. You get an ADA. So we both see it. We go walking up to it, and we're looking around. I'm looking down. DA's like off to my left, I believe.
I was watching the woods because I kept hearing something pacing us.
That was before we actually saw what we saw, right? Okay. So,
but I could hear it. I just didn't see it.
So I knew he was off to my right, and I was looking down. I think Noah was behind me somewhere. I'm looking down, and I'm like, "Oh boy!" I said, "Boys." They said, "What?" I said, "Come here." You know this, Wayne. You don't say, "Come look at this," and say what it is. You let people let. So they come up. I said, "What do y'all think about that right there?" I'm holding the flashlight over. DA goes, "Oh my God! Look at the size of that footprint. It was probably that long. Perfect.
Yeah, probably every bit of 18 inches.
Perfect, because it was right in the middle of that mud, and it was. I'd say probably that deep because, like I said, it was in that mud. But I had drove straight in. We went and got something to eat. I went and checked in. They went back home and then come back and got me, and we went straight out there. So we didn't have time to grab a lot of the stuff we needed. So
I didn't grab my kit with the plaster of Paris.
Yeah, we didn't have anything to cast it. Well, we're at this point it's probably on the shady side of 10 o'clock. So DA's like, well, we'll come pick you back up first thing in the morning. We'll go grab some stuff, and then we'll right back out here and cast it. Sounds good. Let's do it. So we finished our little foray in the park.
Now, is this it?
No, that's the one I took outside of Gatlinburg.
Okay, I'm sorry.
But
no problem.
You see how good that one, the other one was just that size probably, but imagine it in mud. It was a lot clearer. So, we look around a few, probably 20 more minutes before we saw what we saw.
Probably in the ballpark of 15, 20 minutes. We're still kind of exploring the area.
We found the license plate first before we saw the big thing. I'm gonna let you get to that part because you're the one that saw that first. So we're walking around. I'm shining my flashlight, and I saw something glint with my flashlight. And DA said, "What was that?" I said, "I don't know. I'm about to go find out." So we walk up in the woods a little ways, and there's a whole front bumper piece with an actual tag on it, a license tag, a current tag that had not expired at this point.
Brand new tag,
but it's just like something ripped it off the front of the car.
Damn.
I was like, that's interesting. So we start walking.
I forgot to send these to you. I'll check your Facebook Messenger. I'm sending you a dump of pictures. These are the ones that we're talking about now.
Okay.
So we see that as we're kind of looking, me and Noah are looking around in that area right there because I'm looking for any kind of tracks or any kind of thing right there. DA kind of walks back around towards where the track was, and I let him pick up because that's where he saw.
Well, you can see the area we're talking about in some of those pictures I just sent you. The area that looks like a muddy area, that's where we found the tracks. But in the bushes behind that, I kept hearing something pacing us. And I've got it was my old duty light from when I was a cop. It's a ProTac HL5X. It's 3,500 lumens. It is not a very dull flashlight. It's stupid bright. So I'm lighting up the area with this really bright searchlight, and I start catching eye shine, green eye shine, and it's pretty high off the ground. And I'm like, "Hey, boys!" And I start pointing at it, and as we move, it moves. And the bush is pretty thick, even though it's November. It's still pretty thick. It's just not a lot of leaves on it. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not sure what's back there. I don't know how high that is off the ground. Well, come to find out, the next day it was down in a little depression, so the eyes were even taller than what we thought. I was thinking 6 to 7 feet, and that depression went down another 2 to 3. So what we were looking at was pretty damn big. And then all of a sudden it kind of darts to the side, and it turns and looks at us again, and then it vanishes into the shadows. And I'm like, oh, it's gone. And Robbie goes, no, it ain't. And at that point was when Robbie was like way out farther than the rest of us. And I'm like, yo, Robbie. And he was like still heading toward it. And that's when Noah had to go grab him and pull him back, because Robbie was heading right after it. Well, come to find out, when we come back down there the next day, that thing had gone into a deep thicket area and laid an ambush. We found an ambush site where this thing could have easily killed or taken any of us, because when Robbie went into it, looked like, as Robbie described, it looked like a bird's nest on its side. It was a hunting blind. And when we walked down that game trail down there, when Robbie and Noah found the blind. When Robbie was in the blind and I knew exactly where he was at, I went back up the trail maybe 10 or 15 yards. And when I turned and came back down, I didn't see Robbie. And I knew exactly where he was at. I couldn't see him until I was on top of him. I mean, I was within less than 10 feet of that blind before I could even could spot him. Had it still been dark and that thing was in there, if we'd have walked down that trail, we'd have been in front of it before any of us even knew it was there.
Yeah, I'm showing some of these pictures here that you just sent me.
This one's kind of hard to see with the image here, but the one you've got up right now is a canine track we found that was about 7 inches across.
Okay.
And that was the track trap. After we left, before we could get back there the next morning to cast it, apparently that vehicle that was watching us drove down and destroyed the tracks. It drove through the muddy area, then left.
Oh, okay. I remember you telling me that.
Now, see,
I was pretty upset. There you can see a little more definition on that canine print there.
Okay. Same. They destroyed the prints.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I haven't seen that vehicle back down there since, but we did see a different one.
Okay. Wow. And this was at Joe Bald.
This is at Joe Bald. Right. And Robbie, you want to tell them how you and Noah found the blind?
Okay. So this was before DA had his procedure, so he was not.
I wasn't as mobile as I am now.
Yeah. So when we got back, after we, discovered that the track had been driven over, we were like, well, crap. I said, well, I looked at Noah and I said, DA was like, I'm just going to sit right here and just kind of watch the area. And I looked at Noah. I said, well, you want to learn some stuff about tracking? He said, yeah. So we kind of worked our way back in the direction of where we had seen the thing the night before. Worked up this little hill. And as I looked down the hill, it's kind of a little draw that kind of worked down into into what looked like a game trail. I said, well, let's walk down there and see if this is an actual game trail or if this is just, just natural and nothing to it. So we get down, of course, it is a little game trail. So we follow the game trail, and there's deer tracks and raccoon tracks and, all kinds of, it was an active trail. So we walk a little bit further. There's a big log across it, and I see some scuff marks on the backside of the log where it looks like something had probably stepped over it, knocked the bark off. So I was showing Noah how you check that versus, you see something and you go back a little bit further and knock some bark off, and you compare the color to see how long it's been in the elements. Just kind of showing him that kind of stuff. So we step over and walk in again, and Noah says, "What's that over there?" And I look across the game trail, and that's when we see what I described. It was like a bird nest. It's it sits like this, but somebody took it and went like that and set it upside up on its
Branches
side.
were woven together, and it was like this perfect little bowl shoved right back in there. And while Robbie's talking, I think I've got some pictures of that too. Let me double check, and I'll send them to you.
So I looked at Noah and I said, "That looks like almost like a hunting blind, like somebody's made a hunt, but no human's going to make a hunting blind on a game trail that in a park like that. I mean, because you're not. I mean, we hunt with a bow or a gun or something like that. We don't jump out and grab stuff, which is what you would have had to done from because it's like that close to the trail. So I said, I was trying to get DA's attention. And here's I told Noah, I said, go back over and get your dad. And I said, I'll stay here and watch this. So he goes and gets him. DA comes back over and he looks at it and he's like, man. And then DA turns and looks. He said, wait. He said, that's the tree right there that I saw the eye shine on the night before. And I mean, literally, it was like right in a line to it. And you could have actually got into the blind.
I just sent him, Wayne.
You could crawl into it from the game trail from the front, but there was also enough room in the back where you could crawl through from the back, right from where that tree was, which we've talked about it since. We figured that's probably what it did when he lost the eye shine, is it came down that little depression, turned and went right into that little, because we would have had to come down that game trail. And that's where I was actually on the top of that game trail headed that way when he got Noah to wrangle me back in. So I'm pretty glad they did, because I probably would have been on the menu that night. Anyway. So,
yeah, I'm looking at those pictures right now, and you couldn't see a foot in front of you.
No. Well, I looked at the ass. Said, well, let's do a little experiment. So I crawled in there, and I'm not a small guy, and I got long arms. I got it in on my knees, and I reached out my arms as far as I could, and I had about 1.5 to 2 feet on each side of my arms, and then did like that, and there was about another foot above my head, or above my hand rather. So I had plenty of room. Let's just put it that way. So I was on my knees already. And I just put my hands down. I leaned down. I looked at DA. I said, y'all turn around and walk up the trail a little ways, and then turn around and come back down and tell me when you could see me. And I had on woodland camouflage pants, a black hoodie, and my camouflage Dark Angel medical hat. DA goes about 13 yards up the trail, turns back around and says, dude, I can't see you.
Yeah, he was gone.
And he knew where I was at, knew where to look, and still couldn't see me. I said, okay, well, just walk down this way and just tell me when you can see me. He got within like 5 to 6 feet of me before he could finally see me. And he was looking for me.
I was practically on top of him before I could see him again, and I knew where he was at.
And he was looking for me. So if you're just walking down that trail and you're not looking for anything and something's there. So
yeah, so guys, what was this other area? The one that you had to have someone bring you in by boat. And everyone listening, when they were telling me this story at the event in Ohio, my jaw, my mouth was wide open, hanging on to every word. And while they're telling this, I'm going to be sharing some pictures. So whoever wants to start, go ahead.
Well, the first thing I want to say about Combs Ferry is it's a closed campground, just like Joe Bald. Joe Bald has been closed since the late 90s. And when we first started researching Joe Bald, we found at least 8 disappearances associated with the park, but they were dead ends. We would find reports of it, but then when we went back to make copies of the reports, they were gone. There are mentions of it still online, but they're hard to find. So the disappearances either got deleted from the internet or swept under the rug, so hard to make them almost impossible to find. But we found them. Joe Bald is a closed park, but you can still drive into it. There's still a public fishing area. The campground is completely overgrown. It looks like you could go in there with a machete and a mower and mow some of that back and still camp there. Most of the campsites are still in great condition. Those old concrete picnic benches and concrete pads for backing your camper in on. They were all primitive campsites, but it still looks like you go in there and clean up the brush and it'd be fine. Combs Ferry is the other side of the spectrum. Combs Ferry, I can find zero reason why they closed it down. Army Corps of Engineers said nothing. Even people that live in the area don't know why Combs Ferry was shut down. It's bigger than Joe Bald. And they went so far as to bulldoze off the roads to get into Combs Ferry. So we had to get in there by boat. And when we get in there, the first thing we noticed is that unlike Joe Bald, where you could just trim back some of the brush and throw a tent down, Combs Ferry looks like a nuclear bomb went off in it. It is absolutely destroyed. The campsites are destroyed. There are boulders bigger around than I can reach, laying in the middle of the trails. Trees are pushed over. It is post-apocalyptic in there. We had to go in by boat, and it was July of this year when we went, and it was hot as heck. And it was still, we went in late at night, hoping so we wouldn't get caught, because you're not supposed to be in there. So we snuck in. There were 7 of us went. 2 of my old lieutenants from my old sheriff's department went with us. We took Steve Monrotis from our show, who was a registered nurse, so he was going to be our medic. Wyatt Estes, who's probably in the chat, but he's always in our chat. He went with us, and our buddy Richard had the boat. We had radios, we had weapons, we had military grade med kits. We went in with a plan, but the only problem is we only had a small boat, and Richard had to take us across the lake in small groups. So Robbie and Noah and me go in with the first group, and we discovered that little bass boat doesn't really like that much beef in the boat all at one time, because I'm 260. Robbie's about that. Noah's taller than me and broader than me. He's a big kid. Boat didn't like having that much beef in the boat, so we had to very slowly take us across and drop us off. So from then on, he was only bringing 2 in at a time. But we had a group of 7. We hit the ground. Once we're on the ground, we get everything fanned out. But the moment that boat backed away and it was just me and Noah and Robbie, we started hearing things coming toward us, and that's completely a different reaction than we get in Joe Bald, because Joe Bald was just quiet, but we immediately had things moving toward us. Noah gets out our parabolic mic, and he's listening. He can hear grunts. We could hear like small stones and stuff being thrown at us through the woods. You could hear him smacking branches, and Noah and Robbie and I are all sitting there with our hands on our pistols, just watching, waiting for the next group to get here. So takes about another half hour to get everybody assembled, and we finally got the whole group on the ground. Well, we make the plan, and Combs Ferry is on a peninsula. It's a big park, probably more than 150 acres, out on a finger out into the lake of Table Rock Lake. And the channel that runs around it is about 250 feet deep. So we're talking deep water. You're not gonna swim in. Plus, that water's spring fed, so it's pretty cold. But it's dead of summer. Every time we turn on a headlamp, we're just surrounded with bugs, but the park's quiet. We're not hearing animals. We can hear birds, like we can hear like waterfowl and stuff on the far side of the cove, but nothing in Combs Ferry. Once we get everybody on the ground, we start trying to follow the old trail, because you could still see bits of like the old asphalt where they had the roads where cars could go through, but it's destroyed. There's boulders, there's trees pushed down. Yeah, and I'm not talking cut, I'm talking pushed down. So we're having to pick our way very carefully up to the end of the peninsula. We put in about halfway down on one side, and we were planning to go a full circle back to the same point. But we started running into something really interesting. We ended up leaving earlier than we'd planned. First thing that happened is we got closer to the tip of the peninsula, is I spotted a track trap. It was an area of dried mud. And that's when I stopped everybody and brought Robbie up and said, "Hey, Robbie, come up here." And it was like super hot and hadn't rained in a while. So the ground was very dry and flaky. But Robbie was still able to ascertain a couple of tracks in there. They couldn't have been casted, because as soon as you put material in it, it would have just destroyed the track because it was so crumbly and dry. But we had one good partial and one solid track that looked to be about 16 inches, Robbie?
Yeah, give or take.
So we got some decent pictures of it, but even on the pictures, you couldn't really see it because that ground was so dry and brittle. So after spending about 15 minutes examining this track trap for anything usable, we decided to press on. And the farther we got, the more it kind of got the feeling that we weren't really welcome there. Things were getting braver. They were coming closer. We were getting rocks thrown at us. Noah was picking up grunts, and what he said sounded like language on the parabolic mic. And at the time, we didn't have a way to record the parabolic. I do now, but we're going back, but we couldn't record the parabolic. And we just had Noah pointing us in the directions. So we follow the trail on around. And what I'd done is I turned off my headlamp, and I was at the front. And we had Robbie and Wyatt were bringing up the back. Steve was in the middle of the group. He was our medic, and then my two lieutenants were on either side of him. And Lieutenant Jenkins and Lieutenant Estrella, great guys. Trust them at my back any day of the week. But we're moving slow, and I'm watching the trail. I'm looking for anything breaks in the trail, and that's when I noticed something in the trail. I called them up. I'm like, "Hey guys, what the hell is this?" It just looked like a big chunk of concrete. So lights come back on. We start looking.
That after we found the.
Oh, was that after?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was before. I was thinking.
No, because we were already on edge when we found the concrete.
That's right, Robbie. You tell them what you and Wyatt found, and then I'll tell them about what I found.
All right. So, well, he's right. It just we were walking in that order when we found this. Wyatt and I are in the back, and DA's in the front. Noah was somewhere in between DA, and then the middle group was Steve and Estrella and Jenkins.
And I was looking down. I was watching the trail for obstructions to tell everybody not to trip over anything. And also, copperheads are pretty bad in Missouri, and I wanted to make sure we weren't going to step on any copperheads. So I was on point, and I didn't even notice what these guys found.
So Wyatt and I are in the back. We're kind of talking really quietly, and he's asking me some questions about stuff. So he's on my left, and I'm kind of looking over at him every couple seconds. Well, I looked over at him, and something caught my eye, and like up above his head level. And I said, "Hold on a second, Wyatt. Move up just a touch." I said, "Cover your eyes." I said, I'm about to turn my headlamp on." I turned my headlamp on. I said, "Hey, DA." We were trying to be quiet, but he needed to see this. He said, "What?" I said, "Come on, just come back here. Just come back here and look." Of course, then everybody comes back. And Wayne, if you want to show the pictures of what we found at this point, that's in the tree.
Just a little over head level. That's a deer leg that has been twisted off, not cut off, not severed. This has been twisted off. You can see how the hide that's still attached to it is twisted up and mangled.
So, yeah, that, and obviously most people's first impression is, "Oh, well, that's a mountain lion." That tree's only about as big around as probably what a grapefruit, DA, would you say?
Maybe just a little bigger than a grapefruit. It ain't big enough for it to, and those branches are too small for a mountain lion. There's no way a mountain lion did that.
So,
that's insane.
Yeah.
I mean,
bears don't do that. Mountain lions don't do that. Coyotes don't do that. Wolves don't do that.
A deer in the tree.
That takes hands to do that because it's wrapped around those branches.
Yep, you got it right. A little twisted. That's exactly what we thought.
It gets better.
Oh yeah,
the blood was still red, and and in the heat, you guys know, blood oxidizes. Blood starts turning a rusty red color, and even black in some cases, depending on how long it's been exposed to the heat. This didn't stink. There were no flies on it. There was no sign of decay, and the blood was still red.
There was blood on the tree, and there was blood and fur at the bottom of that tree. So anybody knows anything about mountain lions and predatory behavior for them, they don't make a kill at the base of a tree, then take it straight up the tree that they make the kill at. They're going to take it because what is that? What's that going to do? That's going to draw any other predators to that kill site, and if they're right, then that defeats the purpose.
Because mountain lions will take a kill up a tree, but it would take a much bigger tree than that to support it.
And it would be a tree further away. It wouldn't be right where they made the kill. And there was blood and fur at the base of that tree. Did you send him that picture, DA?
I think so.
So
I'm not sure.
And this was about 6.5, 7 feet off the ground.
If not, I can do it.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I mean, what would be the purpose? And hanging a deer carcass or part of a deer carcass in the tree.
well, when you show the next picture that we found about 20 yards away on the opposite side of the trail.
Robbie, those pictures are still on the DSLR.
Okay.
About that right there?
Yep, that one right there.
A fish.
A fish missing its eyes, and it has been torn apart. That is shoved into the V of a branch. Why would that be there?
Guys, I'm telling
It's
you
not
right
a Missouri
now,
tree trout.
exactly. I'm telling you right now, that fish didn't just crawl onto land and then go and find a tree and crawl up in there and decide to die.
It looks like it was grabbed, like on the body and probably by the head and just torn off, because you can see that's jagged. There's no straight line cuts.
Yeah.
This was not some fisherman that thought this would be a lark to put that out there to freak people out. That was placed at about head level on the opposite side of the trail we were on, within 20 yards of it. The funny part is, no sooner had we passed those two markings, they got aggressive.
Why the hell would there be a deer and a fish?
Well, my theory is they were telling us, get out of here. Go back. Don't go past this point.
Yeah.
And of course, we did.
We did.
Go past
and
that point.
After we passed it, we started getting a lot more growls. We started getting stuff thrown at us, but they're still not coming out. And I don't think there was one of us that didn't have a hand on a firearm. And it was about this time when Steve told us that he'd hurt his knee. He wasn't sure if he did it getting out of the boat or if he did it climbing over some of the rocks, but he'd hurt his knee. Turned out he'd actually broken one of the bones in his knee. But he was like, "Hey guys, my knee is killing me. I'm hurt." So we put Steve in the middle of the group and all surrounded him, because if predators in the area, it's going to go after the wounded. And he was our doc, so he was our medic. So we're not going to let anything happen to Doc. We can start going down the trail a little farther, and that's when I saw the concrete in the road. I'm like, what in what was left of the trail? I'm like, what in the hell is that? It just looked like a big concrete slab. And Wyatt said, "Hey, DA, look over here." So I looked off to my left, and there's an absolutely destroyed campsite. And I looked back down at what it was and what was it laying on the ground in front of me, and then back over at the campsite, and realized what it was. It was the top of the picnic table. Probably 6 to 8 inches thick, at least 6 feet wide and 10 feet long. I would guess probably an estimate of 12 to 1,500 pounds of concrete had been ripped off that table and thrown in the middle of the trail 30 yards away.
What the hell does that?
You couldn't have gotten heavy equipment in there. There is no way you could get any kind. I wouldn't have taken a bicycle in there. There was absolutely no way you could get anything on wheels through there.
And there was 7 of us, Wayne. None of us were small guys. I don't think the 7 of us could have picked that thing up.
I don't think we could have got it off the ground, let alone moved it.
What else do we need? What other proof do we need than what you guys have shown us tonight?
So
stuff that we can't move. I mean, we have carcasses in trees of 2 different kind of animals in an area that no one is allowed to be in.
So after we passed that area, the more we're moving on, after we found that, we went a little ways further and we found more boulders in the road. And I stopped, and me and Estrella got his GPS out, and we were looking at the map of the area. And Steve was having trouble walking. He was walking with a limp. And, we still had a lot of distance we wanted to cover. We hadn't even covered half of Combs Ferry yet. But I looked over at Steve and I looked at Estrella and I said, "Get us an extraction point. I'm going to get on the radio and get the boat in here. We got to get Steve out of here. He can't keep walking through this broken terrain with a bum knee." Because at the time we didn't know it was broken, but he was having trouble walking. I mean, at least one of us was walking next to him all the time, so he could have somebody to lean on. So looked at the map and found what was left of the old boat launch, which was about 100 yards from where we were at. but it was still going to be a good half a mile to finish the loop to go back where we put in at. So I got on the radio and I got a hold of Richard and I said, "Hey, can you come around to the old boat launch?" He said, "Yeah, give me about 15 minutes. I'm going to have to go all the way around the peninsula." But I said, "Well, we'll meet you there." So we crawled over a bunch of boulders and helped Steve across and went to the old boat launch. And the lake was really up, like way up. It had been raining like crazy. So Richard pulls the boat in, and I put Steve and my old Lieutenant Jenkins on the boat, the first boat out, because I knew Jenkins would be able to help Steve. I said, "Get him out of here. The 5 of us will stay." So while we're waiting, and, we're doing basic head math. We'd already said that boat can't really handle 3 at a time. I said, "All right, Estrella and Wyatt, I want you guys on the next group out, and then Noah and Robbie, and I'll stay for the last." And then Robbie started arguing with me. He's like, if I leave you here by yourself, your wife's going to kill me. So we were kind of arguing back and forth. But my whole plan on the whole time going in was be the first set of boots on the ground, the last set of boots coming out. So I was pretty adamant it was going to be me.
And I was pretty adamant it wasn't going to be.
So about 20 minutes later, Richard comes back with the boat. And we put Estrella and Wyatt on, and they back out. And no sooner had they backed away and were heading out, these things got way more aggressive. We're getting rocks thrown at us. We're seeing eye shine. They're moving in around us, and the woods are very thick. So Robbie, Noah, and I all backed up and drew. And we're just standing there with our backs to the water with our pistols. Like, these things are coming.
The backs of our heels were actually in the water.
We were like standing up against the water. And I said, "These things are coming." And so we sat there for a very tense 20, 25 minutes until the boat come back around. And at that point, I looked at Richard. I'm like, "Can you get all 3 of us on the boat this time?" He's like, "We'll make it work. Everybody get on the boat." So we pile on the boat and get back on the boat. We put our guns away. We get back on the boat. Richard starts backing the boat slowly away from the shore and then turns on the floodlight. And all along the shore on both sides of where we had just been standing was green eye shine up in the trees. We were totally surrounded. Had we left one person there, guaranteed they wouldn't have been there when the boat came back.
Exactly. That's what I told you guys at the event that we just did. I would not have wanted to be in the last one. If you guys would have left one person, they would have went missing. I can tell you right now.
Yeah, we'd have been, whoever got left behind would have been missing 411.
That's creepy as fuck, guys.
But we're planning on going back.
I know. I asked you when you were going back because I want to be there. I would love to go back. I want to go to this area. I mean, just the intrigue of this area that no one has been in, no one's supposed to go to, and then y'all went and had all this crazy stuff happen. Call me stupid, call me crazy, but I want to be there. I want to go.
And you haven't heard this part, Wayne. We can top it now.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Let me send you the pictures. This happened last Friday, just a few days ago. Okay. Let me find the right ones to send you. Here we go. I'm getting ready to give you a picture dump of about 6 pictures.
Okay.
Oh, hang on. Got to get your there we go. All right. Had the wrong window up. I was about to send those pictures to somebody else.
You send them on Messenger?
Yes, same as the others. Okay, so last Friday, just a few days ago, Noah and I decided to go back down to Joe Bald. I just had a feeling I needed to go back down there. I wanted to check and see if that blind was still there, which it was. I wanted to look for tracks near because the lake is down. The lake is down now. I wanted to go see if I could find more tracks, and I was going to send the tracks to Robbie because the signal down there is bad. You can't get phone signal down there worth a damn. So I was going to take as many pictures as I could, send them to Robbie to look at the tracks, because unfortunately he's still in South Carolina. He wasn't able to go down there with us. So this is just me and Noah. So me and Noah were exploring the park, and number one, Joe Bald was a primitive campsite. Okay, there was no power to any of the campsites. You couldn't pull in there and hook up your camper like you can today in most campsites. This was a primitive camp area. No power, no water. Okay. We keep finding power boxes in the park. 3-phase, large capacity power boxes. The one we found was number 25. So that means there's at least 24 more in there that we haven't found yet. And I don't know why they're there, because there's no explanation for these power boxes to be there. But while Noah and I were exploring, we had gone over to one far edge of the park that was the closest to just the thick woods. And that's when we started finding these pictures that I just sent you. I spotted them from the road, and I wasn't sure what I was seeing. And we got out and walked over there. Now, one thing I want you to pay attention, start with the leg pictures before you do the head. One thing I want you to look very carefully about this is, if this was a poacher, this is the worst I've ever seen somebody attempt to dismember a deer. It is far easier to take a knife and cut through the sinew and pop the legs off. What's that?
I said the look on Wayne's face looked like he just looked at him.
I know it.
These are twisted and broken off. These were not taken off by a poacher. Well, you get the head first. Do the legs first. There you go. Look at that. You can see the bone sticking up out of it. If you can kind of zoom in on that, you'll see the bone is jaggedly broken. Yeah. Also, the what's sticking out is sinew. This has been snapped and twisted off of a deer. This has not been cut off by somebody who was rapidly trying to get the meat off a deer, because most poachers only take what they call the sweetbreads or the backstrap. Poachers are in a hurry to get the meat and get the hell out of there, because it's bow season right now. But if this was a hunter, why the hell would they make it that hard on themselves? These are torn off. They're not cut off cleanly.
Yeah.
The bone's all jagged. These are all torn off.
Something tore that off.
Something tore all 4 legs off of it. Now go to the head one. Okay, one thing you can't tell from this is over here at the far left of the picture, you can see kind of a bloody spot sticking out. That's the spine. This thing the head has been torn off at the shoulders, and that's the hide. The hide has not been skinned. It was ripped off when the head was ripped off. And when we got to that, there's no eyes. The eyes of the deer are completely gone. The sockets are clean. They left the antlers, and the skin was still pliable. No rigor had set in. This had only been there probably less than a couple of hours when we found it.
What the fuck?
This absolutely blew our minds.
How do you explain that?
You can't. I mean, that is not a poacher. I mean, I field dressed plenty of deer in my day. That's not how you remove the legs on a deer. It's a lot easier to take a knife, shove it into the joint, cut the sinew, and then just pop that joint off. It takes a little pressure, but a lot less than it takes to wrench the leg off and snap the bone and twist off the sinew. I couldn't do it. I don't think Robbie and I together could do it.
No. And the best way I described it was like, and this is what it looks like to me. If you look at all the pictures, Wayne, have you ever went squirrel hunting?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You ever skinned a squirrel?
I've seen it done. I've never done it.
Okay. Well, you think the way you usually skin a squirrel is you take a knife and you cut all 4 of the legs off, and you make the slit, and then you take the skin and peel it off and then cut the head off. That looks exactly like how a human would.
The amount of power.
But yeah,
the amount of power that would take. The only thing there was those 4 legs and the head. The entire torso with the meat on it was gone. There was no gut pile. If this had been a poacher, there would have been a gut pile. Why would it carry off the guts?
I was just thinking, what the hell are we looking at here? It's just a head and like loose skin. I mean, what?
Yeah, like it tore the head off and most of the skin on the back. That is not all of the skin.
That's not a hunter.
No, not anyone I've ever seen. I grew up hunting the woods of the Ozarks, and I'm telling you, I've never seen anybody dress a deer like this. And there was blood on the rocks as well, but not a lot of it. So I don't think that was the kill site. I think that's where it tore it apart.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea what to make of that.
I mean, I've been quiet this whole show, okay? Because my daughter, her dog has been yelling. But I'm just going to unmute myself because holy shit. if I saw that, I would goodbye. I mean,
Well,
that's
Noah and I did the exact opposite. We went to investigate, and we circled out through the area around it. This was not like, if a poacher was going to dump the pieces, they would have driven back in there, thrown them out on the side of the road, and took off. But this was back in the woods. I just barely got a glimpse of it, and we got out and went over to look at it. There was like an old trail there. But there was rocks and hardpack. We couldn't find any tracks. We didn't find a blood trail. We didn't find the gut pile. All we found was the legs that had all four legs had been ripped off, and the head and neck had been ripped off and looked like it came off right where the neck meets like the shoulders and the clavicle, like it had been pulled off there, and like it peeled off most of the back skin with it. And then just threw it over there in a pile. And I looked at the end of the neck. It was ragged. It was not cut off. There were no clean cut marks. It looked like the meat and the bones had been ripped out of socket. It was not a clean cut.
wow.
And that's not the only time that we found deer in that state either.
That's actually the third time we found dismembered deers. The second time was down an area called Blunk Road down near Galena, Missouri. It was when Robbie was there when we had the encounter there in Joe Bald. We left Joe Bald, went down to Blunk Road, and it was around midnight or 1 a.m. when we got down there. And as we're driving, and this is a rough old country road. It's not a well, you can get in there without a 4-wheel drive, but I wouldn't get off the parking area, because if you do, you're going to get stuck. But as we're driving down there, and I've got my high beams on, and we round a corner, like we're heading almost straight at the lake, the river access, and I see something in the road, and I'm like, Robbie was looking at his phone, and I'm like tapping him on the shoulder. I'm like, hey, what the hell's in the road up there? And he looks up and he leans forward almost to the dash. He goes, that looks like a head. And I'm like, yeah, it does look like a head. So the closer we get, we realize it's a deer's head laying in the middle of the road. So I drive around it. We go on down to the parking area, park the car, and go back up there. We walk back up there, Noah, Robbie, and I, and we find this deer's head in the middle of the road. And this one, we thought maybe it was a poacher because the antlers were gone. You could see where the antlers had been, but it also had been like forcibly removed. It was missing the eyes. It was missing the tongue. And it was jagged how it had been removed, but it was laying smack in the middle of the road down there. So we're like, what the heck is going on down here? Who leaves a head in the middle of the road? But at that point, we're thinking probably a poacher. So we go back down to the parking area and kind of where we'd park the car, and we kind of move off into the trees, and we find 2 more deer that had both been basically torn apart. One of them, the head was laying off to the side. Its eyes and tongue was missing, and the top of its skull and its brains were gone. The hide for the deer was laying a few feet away. The only reason I could think anybody would keep the brains is you've heard of brain tanning. They say the Native Americans used to say that the Great Spirit blessed every animal with enough brains to tan its hide. Well, the hide was right next to it, and we found another one that had basically had its skull crushed. The eyes were gone, the tongue were gone, part of the facial meat was gone, and again, it had been basically torn apart. And we found one complete skeleton that all of the meat was gone off of. And I don't know if you've ever cut up a deer, Wayne, but when you cut up the ribs, you don't sit there and strip the meat off of them. You take the whole rib cage, cut them up, and you cook them just like you would beef ribs. This had meticulously had the meat scraped off, or not scraped, chewed off, because you could see marks on the bone, chewed off of the rib cage. The ribs were still there, the carcass was still there, and all of the meat had been stripped. And it was freaking weird. It was really freaking weird.
So what is it with the tongue and the eyes? Like
soft meats.
Yeah.
A lot of protein.
Birds go after people or animals or what have you. They go after the eyes first because it's the same way, huh?
A lot of high nutrients in it. Same thing with the liver. I read an article written by Dr. Bendernagel years ago about the protein value of deer liver, and that there had been a bunch of deer that they'd found killed. The only thing missing was their liver, and he suspected that during harsh winters, Sasquatch can live for a long period of time simply off deer livers because of the amount of nutrients in it.
Wow.
And it's supposedly also good for night vision.
All right, we got some questions, guys. We
Fire
are
away.
going to switch over to these. We are already over 20 minutes, about 20 minutes over the hour. So we're going to jump into some questions / comments. First one, Nathan Finn, DA. If you could spend a year researching a cryptid in the field, which would it be?
Probably Bigfoot. I mean, I've had a visual sighting of a Dogman, and I've had Bigfoot come up very close, but I've never had an actual full-on sighting. I've seen, well, heck, there in Combs Ferry that night, we saw shadows, figures moving between trees, but we didn't, we didn't actually get a sighting. And I was really thinking there at the end when there was just the three of us on that boat ramp that they were going to come out, but they never did. But we were pretty terrified. But if I could spend a year in the field, it would be on Bigfoot research. Because I've got a feeling that I at least stand a chance with a Bigfoot. I don't think I would with a Dogman. I think if they want you, they're going to get you.
Very true. I agree. All right, my good buddy Troy, do you think it odd that within 500 miles of it, both sides of the Mississippi River have accounts of Dogman more so than other areas?
Well, one of the things that we've noticed and we talked about on our show, and Robbie can jump in on this if he wants to. We've noticed that the missing 411, if you take the maps of the missing 411s, you can overlay those with a map of the known cave systems of the U.S. They match up perfectly. And Missouri is riddled with caves. The U.S. Geological Survey now believes that the Mammoth Cave System could possibly extend from Maine to southern New Mexico to Carlsbad Caverns.
Wow. Mammoth Cave, that's like in Kentucky, right?
Kentucky and Tennessee. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. All right. Scott Trent, how deep do you all think the government is involved with these things?
Robbie, you want to take that one?
I really don't know how deep they're involved, but I've got my own. They know about these things. I mean, I don't think that they have engineered them because we've talked about this so many times on the show. Sightings go back. I mean, cynocephaly. In Catholic iconography, as DA likes to point out, Saint Michael or Saint Christopher. Saint Christopher was the dog-headed saint, and he's depicted as having the head of a wolf until he completed his first miracle. Then God turned him back into a human. King Lycan in Greek mythology tried to trick Zeus and feed him human flesh, and Zeus knew it and turned him and his sons into beasts, which basically turned them into wolves. Hence the name lycanthrope. Stuff like that goes back to the first written history. And we've said so many times, if you go back and look at every First Nation tribe, every major civilization, every major continent on this earth has some type of Dogman or Bigfoot. And we've even talked about the Pura Rice map, which DA knows the years better than I do, but this thing's old. Let's just put it that way.
The Pura Rice map belonged to a Turkish admiral named Pura Rice. Pura Rice had a map that they believe is a copy of a much older map. I've got a copy of it over here behind my green screen. But you should look into the Pura Rice map. It's spelled Piri space Reis, Pura Rice. They didn't know what it was. It was a shoreline that nobody recognized. It had trade routes marked on it. It had ships. And in the margins of the map, it also had hand-drawn figures that looked like Bigfoot and Dogman. So in 1972, the United States Navy was doing acoustic sounding of the ice shelf of Antarctica and discovered that the Pura Rice map is Antarctica without ice on it.
Oh, wow.
Yep. So, in our opinion, our government has went so far as to teach dolphins how to put mines on ships and all that kind of stuff. Why would we believe that they were above finding Bigfoot or Dogman or things like that and trying to weaponize them? I mean,
Yeah, I don't think our government created them.
Yeah,
I
but
certainly think they've tried to exploit them.
Oh yeah, and
well, that kind of goes into the next question by Ristel. DA Robbie, what do you think Dogman is? Natural creature or man-made?
natural.
I think it's been here as long as we have.
Okay.
Yep. I mean, like we talked about. I mean, the cynocephaly. That's you can date that back to the
Greeks and the Romans.
Yeah, the first written records of anything, and you know, if you look at like I was starting to, I mean, look at the Inca stones. This is one of my favorite arguments when people say, "Oh, humans never really were with dinosaurs." Then how come the 4,000-year-old Inca stones you find pictures written or pictures drawn that look like a Stegosaurus or a Brontosaurus? And this is where DA loves my comment. They couldn't get on the Googles and put in T-Rex and see what it looks like. The only way they could have done that is if they saw these things and knew. So things like this have been around as long as we have.
Well, look at the uncanny valley theory. The uncanny valley theory is something that's talked about in modern circles, modern scientific and psychological circles. They've done studies of people from every walk of life all across the globe, and they've discovered what they refer to as the uncanny valley theory. Why people from all across the planet, no matter where they were, their country of origin or their whatever their status, people all over the world share an unnatural fear of things that look almost like us in the dark. Why is that? It's because something that looks vaguely human once hunted us and probably still does.
I find that so interesting. I've talked to someone recently. It escapes me. But we've had the same conversation, and that is so very, very fascinating to me. All right, let's move on. Ristel, have you considered sending Dogman DNA samples into Darby Orcutt's DNA study?
I don't know that I've ever collected anything that I could legitimately say was a Dogman DNA sample. I saw a Dogman in LBL, saw it plain as day, broad daylight, about 10:30 in the morning. So I knew exactly what I was seeing, but I've never collected anything I would honestly say this is definitively Dogman DNA.
So like the
However,
bones,
if I did, I would probably send it to Doug Highcheck at Monster Quest.
so like the bones and everything from the deer, you don't think maybe could have had?
I didn't think about that, but I think every one of those deer that we found, I think that was more Bigfoot than Dogman, because Dogman, they've got big teeth and claws. They would have used them. These every one we found looked like they were torn apart.
Okay. All right, my buddy Troy, do you believe Dogman and or Bigfoot could be offspring of the Nephilim?
Robbie, you want that one?
I might make some people mad or hurt some feelings on this one. I don't think that they're the offspring of Nephilim.
I agree.
I think that these are there again. This is, DA and I both have law enforcement backgrounds. I'm still currently in it. DA did it for most of his adult career, just like I have. We're evidence based. We look where the evidence takes us. And the only thing that I have ever seen, I've had quite a few encounters. I've had quite a few things happen to me. Some things I can't explain, but for the most part, most everything that I can explain or that I've encountered, there's already something like that in the natural world. Adaptive camouflage is a big one that we believe in. We don't think they cloak or anything like that. We don't think they have any supernatural powers. I'm not saying they don't or it's impossible. It's just this is not what we believe. So I think that these are just an undiscovered species that has a like a built-in ghillie suit. They were born with a ghillie suit on that has clear hair shafts, just like polar bears do. Already something that exists in nature. And
wolves have part of the undercoating of wolves are clear as well.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And I ask people this all the time, and a lot of people don't know. I said, what color is a polar bear if you shave it? And they're like, white. No, polar bear skin is not white if you shaved it. Tiffany, you know what color it is?
It's black.
Very good. And I ask people, why is it black? Well, I don't know. What does black do? Black absorbs heat.
Mhm.
Where the polar bears live, a very cold climate. That comes in very handy for a polar bear to have black skin, because when the sun shines down through their clear hair shafts, that black
Traps in the
skin
heat.
will
Yep.
absorb and trap the heat, and it keeps them warm. So why do they appear white? And people are like, oh, well, I don't know. Where do they live and where do they hunt? They hunt and live in the snow.
Yep.
If a polar bear is sitting in front of a breathing hole that seals use, and it stood out from the snow, that seal's going to look up and see that and be like, I ain't going up there.
Right?
Tell me this: if y'all watched any of these nature shows where you see polar bears laying down doing this,
Mhm.
you know why they're doing that?
Because their nose is black. It gives them away.
You're good at this, Tiffany. You're
I mean-
really good at this. Exactly.
Why we keep her?
That's why they do this.
That's why we keep Tiffany
They will
around.
that's adaptive camouflage in its truest form.
And
They-
every deer I've ever gotten in my lifetime from deer hunting, every deer I've ever gotten, I only got because I saw it move. When they were setting completely still, I would miss them every time. It's that movement that gave them away, and they don't have any special adaptation. They are just very good at blending into their surroundings. They're naturally adapted. It's natural camouflage. They look like their backdrop. And so until they move, you don't see them. Same thing with the Bigfoot. One of the best examples of what we're talking about here is a lot of researchers like Doug Hychek and a lot of others have mentioned the clear hair shafts they found in Bigfoot hair samples. There's the Paul Freeman footage. Paul Freeman is filming a large black Sasquatch, and when it realizes he's filming it, it stops in front of a
Of a green tree.
green like pine tree, and it disappears. It didn't cloak. It didn't go through a portal. Scotty didn't beam it up to the Enterprise. It just disappears before your eyes. When he keeps coming and it realizes he's still coming, it starts walking again. And as soon as it starts walking, you can see it.
That's very true.
It just picked up and redirected the color of the foliage around it. And that's why it disappeared.
We are firm believers in a lot of these questions that people have about these things have already been answered in nature. Just like with tracking, people say, well, I was following these tracks and all of a sudden they just stopped. So it had to have gone into a portal. How you can't start an investigation and start at point A and then immediately go to point Z without hitting those points in between, because you get to point Z and it don't make any sense. Then where are you going to go from there?
Yeah. If I to a call and they said we've got a dead body and the house is locked tight from the inside, and I can see the guy dead in the house with no obviously a gunshot wound, and the guy's laying dead but he doesn't have a gun, so you can pretty much figure out it's not a suicide, but the house is locked tight from the inside. If I went portal, I'd be peeing in a cup within a few hours.
Yep.
That's right.
So we both just believe, and Steve and Doc too, we all share the same viewpoints on this, is if you look in nature, you'll already see the answers to a lot of these things. Backtracking, adaptive camouflage, all that stuff is already, and I just can't, sometimes I get frustrated. It's just like, dude, you just got to but I just get so frustrated. Like, this stuff already exists in nature. Rabbits backtrack. Grizzly bears will backtrack.
Bears will do it.
We've got, how many animals do we have that have adaptive camouflage that is just, it's a known fact. 1998, they discovered the Billy Ape, which is a 6-foot upright bipedal chimp that kills lions, has attacked people and drug them out of villages.
And goes to war against other clans of its own kind.
And uses tools. Man, what does that sound like? Well, we found that, but oh, Bigfoot, you're crazy. That can exist. Or that's an entity.
And that was found within the last 25 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very true. Very true.
I sometimes I just don't understand why it has to go way over here instead of just, okay, let's just look at what we know so far and work with that.
Yeah. If the evidence takes us there, great. But we can't start there.
Yeah. And another thing that we've talked about this before too, the people who love to say it's a hoax. Think about it in those terms for a second. If this was a hoax, I want to work for that company. Because think about how many people that it would take to perpetuate a worldwide hoax that has been going on as long as this phenomenon has been going on, to keep that running. You would probably be making a lot of good money working for a company like that.
Yeah, you can search wild man attacks and find articles leading back to the early 1800s. The phrase Bigfoot wasn't coined until 1957. Dogman wasn't coined until the late 90s. Yet we still have accounts of these types of creatures dating back centuries.
Well, I was looking at something today, and I was telling Wayne before the show, and it was back in the 1500s, you guys, the 1500s. And some girl, she either wrote a song or she wrote a ballad, but it was about a werewolf. It wasn't coined the Dogman, but the 1500s.
Well, look at the attacks in France, the Beast of Gévaudan. That was what they call it. They still say it was a werewolf attack, and it killed something like 200 people over the course of 10 years.
And Peter Stoop in Germany.
Yeah,
has to be a werewolf.
The epic poem Beowulf. If you read Beowulf and hear when it's talking about Grendel, it's describing a Bigfoot. So it's, to me, it sounds like they've been, well, in Europe they called them the Woodwoes for centuries. So I think that Beowulf was actually describing a battle with a clan of Bigfoot. When you really take it to heart and take it literally as opposed to just this epic poem, what are they describing? They're describing this group of Beowulf and his followers fighting large hairy monsters that were taking the heads.
Yeah.
You heard of the Nahanni Valley and they keep finding dead bodies without heads?
Mm-hmm.
And the Vikings talking about the Skraelings that they encountered here in the U.S. when they first started trading over here. If you read those accounts and read what they describe, they were large. Now, think about Vikings. They weren't scared of a whole lot. But they were scared of the Skraelings. They were scared of these Skraelings. So that should tell you something right there. I mean,
the Vikings large, hairy, and powerful.
Well, I think if people would do their homework, and I think if people would go back farther than when everything was first coined, Bigfoot, Dogman, what have you, and they go back to the cultures and the Indian, the tribal language, they would find a lot more than just using Mr. Google's, Robbie, and
I think the Vikings made it a lot farther than people have ever given them credit. We know about the settlement in Vinland, but have you guys heard of the Heavener runestone?
No.
Mm-mm.
The Heavener runestone was dated at the 8th century. Okay, the 8th century, and guess where it's at?
Where's that?
Heavener, Oklahoma.
What?
It's a Viking runestone in Heavener, Oklahoma.
That's wild.
Oh my gosh. All right, guys. We're coming up on 2 hours now.
Really?
So
Holy crap, this has flown by.
I know, but we have to ask one more question because I was going to ask this question and Johnny asked this question. Please, DA, describe your Dogman.
In LBL, there's a place called DeMumbers Bay, and what I didn't know at the time is it's just a few hundred yards from the original kill site from 82. DeMumbers Bay is a weird area. Robbie's been there. He can tell you the same thing I tell you. That whole area feels like you're in a horror film. Well, I was in LBL with Nick Valente, and I'd been there about a week, and Nick got there like a few days after I did. But on our last day in LBL, him and I had left DeMumbers Bay, and he's got a Hummer H3, and we were driving very slowly down the road looking for primitive campsites so we could go look for tracks, because LBL is riddled with primitive campsites. So he's looking out the left. I'm looking out the right. We have just left DeMumbers Bay. Shortly after you leave DeMumbers Bay, there's this little concrete slab bridge. We crossed over that maybe 50 to 100 yards on the other side of that bridge as we're driving, again, like 2 miles an hour. I'm looking at the side of the road, and I kind of glanced over something, and it, something in my head's telling me, that was important, but it didn't move. So, I just kind of moved over it. But it turned its head to watch us go by, and just that much movement caught my attention, and I turned back. And at this point, I'm like punching Nick in the arm, like, stop! He slams on the brakes. I'm looking square at this thing. Nick leans over and he sees it. I saw it for between 15 and 20 seconds. It was standing maybe 30 yards off the road with its hand against a tree, just leaning against the tree underneath the shadows. And it's about 10:30 in the morning. And it wasn't built like the big, massive, muscular werewolves like you see in Van Helsing. This looked like a dog on its hind legs. It had the narrow chest like a dog, but it had hands. I mean, you could see it had hands. And one detail that just stands out absolutely is while the head did look like a classic wolf shape with the ears and everything, the snout was blunt like a Rottweiler. The snout was shorter and broader than a wolf would be. And once it realized I had seen it, it didn't run like we would. It turned, left that tree, and it did this. And I've described this many times, and I hope I'm describing it well enough that you get what I'm saying. But instead of running like we would do, it bounded to the right, bounded to the left, bounded to the right again, and then went down a ravine. It didn't run in a straight line. It just did this weird like, and then it was gone. And we could hear it plowing off through the trees. It was running to beat hell. It was incredibly fast. So, being unarmed and guys in our full presence of our facilities, Nick and I did the only sane thing. We threw the car in park and we got out and chased it. We go running over there. We go running over there and look at this ravine, and I'm looking down at it. I'm like, there ain't no way in hell we're making it down that. I said, not without climbing equipment. We're going to get beat up and tear ourselves apart trying to get down, because it was heading down toward the lake, and we were at a pretty good elevation above the lake at this point. And so I'm like, we're not catching that thing. So I go back and I start looking where it had ran, and the leaf litter was so thick I could just find impressions where it had hit, but there was no way I was getting a track. So I went back over to the exact tree where it was standing, and I estimated where its hand had been, and I put my hand up there, and it was like uncomfortably above my head. Like if you go up to lean up against a tree, you're going to put your hand about shoulder level, right? You're just going to put it again, lean up against the tree. If you don't just lean against it with your shoulder, the hand was above my head, kind of uncomfortably so, but it looked like it was just casually leaning against the tree. So, and I'm 5'10", so I estimated it was about 6.5, maybe 7 feet tall. But it, like I said, the chest and shoulders were narrow like a dog's, but it clearly had hands, and I never saw it drop to all fours. It ran on two legs.
Wow. Well, we are definitely going to have you back for a part 2, because I mean, I could just keep going, and we've been on here for an hour and 45 minutes.
I'd be happy to.
Yeah, we're going to have to.
I told you it was dangerous letting us take the wheel, didn't I?
Yeah, well, Todd is getting us to shut up. That's the trick.
No, but it's been a really, really good freaking show. It's been a great conversation.
Yeah, it has. Guys, tell everybody where they can find you.
You can find all of my books on Amazon or at daroberts.net. You can find our show, which is right there underneath me here, right there. The show's called DAX Machina. It's on YouTube, youtube.com/DAX Machina podcast. We go live every Wednesday and Saturday night. And here lately, we've been doing story times on Sunday nights as well. So I hope you guys would check us out. And if you like books with a lot of action, hope you'll check mine. Check my books out. Again, daroberts.net.
Very cool. Robbie, got anything you want to share?
Well, I mean, you can catch me on the Ex Machina with this guy right over here. The white hat versus the black hat. I have a show, What's Really Out There. It's like it's kind of like they're out there, but we pre-record them. I put more effort into DA show because we always kind of joked that it was DAX Machina Light. We love to make that comparison because it's only like 30 minutes to an hour. And like I said, it's pre-recorded, but there are episodes out there. You can find that on YouTube and Spreaker and all that stuff. Also, you can find any of my laser engraved products that have all our DAX Machina and Wild Hunt and all that stuff on it, like the Wild Hunt logo you see behind me, and you probably can't see those, but
yeah, stuff
like this. You can find that on Instagram.
I don't think I've got anything handy or I'd show it off.
Well, the boarding axe I showed earlier, was we on the air when I showed my boarding axe? Was that before we?
That was before. Heck yeah.
Get the right side. I do laser engraving on just about everything. Make hats. or make the patches for the hats. Don't make the hats. I ain't that good. Wayne, you saw some of my hats at the show.
Yeah, very cool. They're very cool.
But you can find me on Instagram at lone.wolfcustoms on Instagram.
He did these.
Yeah, those are cool. The wooden or not wooden,
Aluminum.
the metal, aluminum.
Yeah, engraved on aluminum.
Yeah, that's,
Aluminium for all you
British
overtime folks.
yeah,
aluminium.
aluminium. All right, guys, thank you so much for
Our pleasure,
taking
man.
time to come and hang out with us tonight. You guys are awesome. You're welcome back anytime. I feel like we just scratched the surface, so there's more we could talk about.
Anytime you're ready. As Doc would say, I'm down like 4 flat tires.
Well, thank y'all
All right.
really for coming. Thank you. It was very interesting.
Well, thanks for the invite, and we appreciate you guys having us on.
All right. Thank you guys
Yep.
so much. Y'all enjoyed the rest
Appreciate
of
it.
your evening.
Y'all as well.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. How
Oh,
good
freaking-
was that, guys?
Oh my gosh. I could have just kept talking and talking.
The chat was hopping.
Yes.
That's awesome, guys. Thank you so very much for hanging out with us tonight. We got up to about 50
Mm-hmm.
people. That's awesome. Thank you very
Yes.
much for hanging out with us tonight.
And I've officially made the mark because I was getting hate in the chat. Did you see that?
Yeah, what was going on with that? I removed somebody.
Well, I think we all three did. It was me, you, and Troy. I don't know. I have no idea who this person was. It's just a troll that doesn't like me, and they don't like my makeup, and they don't like to look at me. Well, don't freaking look at me. I don't need your approval.
Yeah, that was messed up.
Yeah, it's fine with me. Just means I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah. Was one of them named Brent Roberts?
The name just came up, the one that I took off or Troy took off, or I don't know. We both booted or put them in timeout. It was Eyeballs.
Yeah, Eyeballs is the only one that I saw.
Oh, that's the only one I saw.
I kicked them out.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, y'all don't mess with Tiffany.
That's right. Damn it. I'm a nice person.
Yeah, they said something like, I don't like you.
Yeah, they don't like
What the
me.
hell is not to like about Tiffany?
Like, I need, and that's what I said. I said, it's okay. You don't have to like me. I don't need your approval. GTFO, if you don't like me. You must
That's
like
right.
something about me. You came in here.
All right, let's get out of here, ma'am. Say your sayonaras.
Sayonaras. We'll see. Wait, what is today? Tuesday? Yes. We have a show Saturday?
I'm sure.
I'm sure we do. I just don't remember who's going to be on there.
We'll figure
But
it
come
out.
back and see us Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. You come back and see us. It'll be a surprise for everybody.
All right, guys. Until we talk again, y'all take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Bye.
Bye.